So what I suggest is that, well, I will introduce myself in a second. And we're all here under talk about the topic like about Startup Nation, about Israeli tech and tech ecosystem. I can go through the slides. I will do that in a way. But feel free to be, let's say, Israelis in a way. Cut me whenever you want to cut me and say whatever you want to say. And I will probably ask some questions because I think a discussion and the debate is quite more interesting than hearing about all kind of cool facts about a very interesting small place somewhere in the Middle East.
One of the traits I've learned when I was in Tel Aviv for the first time, that the people just talk right into someone other's sentence, and it's a question of livelihood and not being impolite.
This is well, these are cultures. One sec. All right. So I briefly introduce myself. How do I do that? All right. So my name is Erez. My English is not that perfect, but I'm doing my best. And my accent is Israeli, so that's what we have. Let's say that I divide my career into two parts right now over the past 5 years. For the past 5 years, on one hand, I'm an entrepreneur. I build stuff that people love and use, hopefully. If they don't love or use it, this is not entrepreneurship. This is a very nice hobby for yourself. So this is what I'm doing like in 50% of my time. The other 50% goes to be an entrepreneur on demand, which basically means that there are all kinds of corporates, faculties, acceleration programs that need some firepower to create projects and competition and startup competition and stuff like that. And they don't have the means or the knowledge, the know-how or the time to do that. So they need someone to, hey, you come here, do that, because we have no idea how to do that, but we really want to do that. So this is what I like. I just go in, build it, make it work, and 24 hours after it's done, I'm not there anymore. I'm doing other stuff. So this is my entrepreneurship on demand title. I started about 5 startup companies. 4 of them died quite quickly. I have a graveyard of startups under my house. The 5th one grew into a nice company. It's about interior design product, let's call it like that. The others were in the tech world. And I joined a friend who asked me very nice to please come and help me because I have so much stuff to do and I have no time for that as a CEO. So please come and let's call you a product manager or whatever. Just come and help our startup. It was in the fintech arena, 2015. So this is the only thing I've done which is not my creation. And the company called Sling got acquired after about 2.5 years for a very large Brazilian company. So all in all, I had my hands in all kinds of products, digital, tangible, restaurant, mobile apps, whatever. I like to do all kinds of stuff like that. What else is interesting? Yes, I have one bike, one wife, and one kid. I won't tell you which one I like the most. You will need to guess that. I wrote 3 books on my spare time. One about the startup ecosystem in Tel Aviv. One is a kid's book, and one is about side project, which is my passion. So how to build your own side project. And I'm doing all kinds of acceleration programs in Israel, Germany, Austria, Spain, places like that. So I'm really much into developing the next generation of entrepreneurs, which is, I think, very different than the generations before. Because tech is very, very easy to get. I mean, you get for nothing services that used to cost like tens of thousands of dollars 10 or 20 or 15 years ago. So this no-code era is affecting profoundly about how you build startup these days. So teaching the next generation about entrepreneurship is a lot about how to think and how to behave and how to get your first, I don't know, products that actually people care about. So this is in a nutshell about what I do. So you know what? Let's before I begin the slide, I just share the slide with you right now. And let's say something like this. I think that Israel, because we have very short time and we can talk for hours about it, but I think in a nutshell that Israel is like this whole country, Israel, is very much like this silver bullet thing, okay? What will you do when you have no options on the table? What will you do as a person? What will you do as a company? What will you do as an organization? What will you do as a country? I mean, there were no other options but to build this country from scratch and deal with it. Deal with whatever surrounds you, whatever happened before that in the World War II or whatever. You have to deal with it. You have to cope with it. And I guess with the years, we see that there's a specific ethos or specific state of mind that created this thing called Startup Nation. So again, Nikki, whenever you want, you can cut me, and I will just give you a short brief about what's going on over here and try to, it's not about Israel is so amazing. It's not. But we're very good at building stuff from nothing, and hopefully someone will buy it very quickly and make it a big company, or we just cut it and build something else. So this is basically what we're very good about it over here. I guess you all know where we're located, but the nations over here in red, these are countries that don't really like us in a way. I'm not going into politics, but they don't really like us. What it means is that this specific pinpoint on the map is about a place that has no trading borders, and many people don't like to trade, at least officially, with us. It has a lot of meaning, not only for countries, not for Israel, it's also for companies that sometimes are in the middle of the storm, nobody to trade with, nobody buys the product. What did they do in order to actually stay alive and productive? So in a way, Israel is very much like startup. I have this slide from 2018, I guess, about Austria and Israel. So about, there's a very big difference in all kind of, especially size. So if you look at it, this is the map of Israel. Jerusalem is the capital city. Tel Aviv is the business capital city. But it's kind of a lie, because if you take this southern part of Israel, which is the Negev, it's basically a desert, nothing there. And the north is the Golan Heights, nothing there. And you take out this Palestinian Authority's territory, this basically is the map of Israel. This is the whole thing. The number 5, the first place outside the US to grow a startup is Tel Aviv for like years now. And this is what we're talking about, this very small place. Now it's very small also in diameter. 2 hours ago, I was in the Dead Sea, but it's only 90 minutes of driving. So it's a very, very small place, which is a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is that you can actually meet everybody very easily. The bad thing is that it's very crowded, all right? So the mentality is different when you have such a small country, which is always on the threat of being extinct. So it's kind of a problem. All right, I think it's important because in order to understand why this case is interesting, I think the geographical point of view is key, because we have no natural resources. We cannot exist. We have no water, we have no gas, we have no oil, we have nothing. We just have a desert. So just like in every other startup or a new organization, somehow need to find a way to actually, I don't know, make a living somehow. So we develop all kinds of technologies in order to survive. This solar water heater or drippers or unmanned aerial vehicle, these are all stuff we need to build for ourselves because we need to survive somehow in this very tough neighborhood. There are many of those. I will just run through the slides because it's not that important. Maybe this is important. Tel Aviv is the highest number of sushi restaurants in the world per capita after New York and Tokyo. which is interesting because many people keep kosher and sushi is not kosher, and yet we eat a lot of sushi. All right, let's talk a bit about the innovation ecosystem here. So there are about 330 multinational companies in Israel. Some of them have venture capital, some of them are just scouting for technology, some of them actually based here in a way, which basically means that in a 45 minutes walk, you can probably hit most of the companies over here. So it's very easy for an entrepreneur to find someone to speak with and to join their acceleration program or to hear them on an event in a bar where we used to have bars before COVID. But it's key because people from all across Europe sometimes come to Tel Aviv because it's easier to get access to Alibaba than to be in Lisbon or other places like that. So it's a very interesting point on the map where so many people are gathered in a very small place. What else? Well, that's Vienna in 1906. This is Tel Aviv in 1906. It was just established, so it's a very young city comparing to others. Many startups, about 300 acceleration programs, many co-working spaces, and dozens of free events every evening. Such as it's a small place, and if you can every evening go to somewhere else and hear the CEO of Facebook Israel talking about this, or this marketing specialist, or Hillel Ford, who is very well known in the tech and PR world, so he can speak. He comes to the bar and speaks about whatever he wants to speak. So you have a very intimate relations in a second. You just go to a meetup and meet someone. We have all kind of numbers, very interesting numbers about what's happening over here. I just ran through the slides because sometimes it's too much information, but this is quite interesting. There are about, in 2 years ago, about $6.3 billion of investments in startups. 2 years ago, this number grew to 8.3 million last year. 2 years ago, and this year, 2020, where is it? Yeah. Okay. Yes. $9.5 billion in a COVID year, which is kind of interesting. So there were 25% less investments in startups, but the investments were quite higher. That's because most of the investments made were in established companies. It was round B, round C. So $220 million for this and 200. But again, even without it, that means that the tech world doesn't really care about coronavirus. It's all about opportunities. It's about how to harness the wind in order to build a windmill. I mean, so if you're here in a place that don't really care about conservative thinking and very much opinionated and trying to build stuff, they're trying to build boxes in new ways. So it's going to be very easy to get out of those. This is how the numbers look like. So there are many investments over here, and this is why in the tech scene or innovation ecosystem in Israel, coronavirus is not really important. It doesn't really affect, beside the fact that you need to work from home. All right. So it's very interesting. While all the conservative and classic industry is now, what should I do? I mean, I'm I'm in a very big problem. I have no idea what to do. The tech world is like, all right, hey, there's an opportunity for us. Let's see how we can improve video chat. Let's see how we can use deep fake technology in order to get those video chats much easier, because I don't need to render the face. I just need to know how the face looks like, and I would just change this. So it's going to be very small portion of the photo. I need to actually calculate. So the video runs very smoothly. All kind of opportunities all the time. Well, there's all kind of numbers and stuff like that. Let's see what else is important. Another thing, again, this talk is mostly about the entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem. So we will just shift from this in a second, because maybe it's too much too much techie and entrepreneurial. The stuff that called startup maps. We have quite a lot of those. You can find it on Google. And for every aspect in this tech scene, you can actually find a map of startups or companies that are building solutions for this specific domain. This one is for the coronavirus, all kind of Israeli companies that deal with this technology. How many? About 70 companies. So this is quite a lot. So you can find those maps for just about everything. This is for sports. And sport is a very big industry. You see mobility. So all kind of those that can actually help to understand what's actually going on over here. I want to shift from this for a second. Yeah, there are so many maps over here. Retail, AR, whatever, quite a lot. If you want, I can share the presentation with you and you can look at it more carefully later on. I would think, Nikki, maybe before we're gonna have some, maybe a discussion or Q&A or stuff like that, I just want to pinpoint something. There are two topics that I usually cover when I speak with someone that are not from Israel. The first thing is about communities and their important, the connectivity. And the second is about what's unique about the characteristic of Israel. And I'm saying them not because to say, wow, we are amazing, we are so crazy, beautiful. It's not about that. I think that as a company or as an organization or as a small startup, if you can deploy a few strategies or a few of those characteristics, I think it can help us strive much better. Because as organizations, we always want to be better, we want to beat the competition, we want to get more money, to have better business models. And in order to do that, I guess some of the characteristics of Israel as a country can very much be similar to those that you want to deploy in your company. So I would just mention those few stuff about especially communities. I like this photo because there are so many startup communities over here inbound. I mean, in your city, in your surrounding, in your ecosystem, that are very much alike. So it seems like that while both of us are superheroes, both of us are organizations or communities that want to, let's say, help mobility startups grow. So we have a bunch of few of them. It seems like they should be opponents and competitors. Nevertheless, you see them always helping each other with all kinds of, I don't know, news from around the world, or if there's something important, someone important coming to Israel. So they always share information, they share statistics, they share all kinds of events. And again, they are completely different organizations and they are rivals in a way. And still, there's a lot of cooperation between startup communities over here. There are many of those. There are communities by vertical, which basically by a specific domain, and you can find so many of those. So if you're an entrepreneur or a researcher that your domain is construction tech, you will find 2 or 3 places that this is what they focus on. They have the research, they know all the people that you should know, etc., etc. Other type of communities by location. So it's about cities, about
You're frozen. Erez, you still there? Or is it me?
Yeah.
You're back. Okay, we just lost you for 20 seconds.
Okay, no problem. So it's written over here. It's about location-based communities. So in every city, sometimes neighborhood, some area of Israel, you have places you can stay, come and work, and you have this help of the local organizers that can support your startup. Of course, by stage, there are communities for A-round startups or for specific type of progress. And of course, by mission, so there are all kinds of NGOs and social ventures, etc., etc. So it's very easy for an entrepreneur to find their niche and to find someone who can support them in their niche. Many times I find, I talk with people from around the world, and they seem to lack this type of knowledge, this type of village. They don't have enough vertical-based hubs or location-based hubs or stuff like that. So it's very hard to foster entrepreneurship when you don't have the specific tools they have. A cyber-oriented startup works and thinks very differently than a, I don't know, sustainable energy type of startup. And they need different tools and they need different access to funding. So this is what we're quite good at that. The other part of the communities, it's quite interesting, is about how we relate with the rest of the world. What's happening from Israel and outside. So this is from Startup Genome, which is a research company, I think, based in San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. And they're mapping this all, I don't know, global ecosystems in the research. And they find, which is not quite, not surprising, that if you're connected to other places on Earth and other ecosystem, then you have much more chances to succeed in what you do. And Tel Aviv is quite near the middle. I mean, we have so many connections with so many people. And let's say it differently. If you're disconnected, if you're sitting somewhere and you have no exchange of knowledge, exchange of opinions, exchange of this type of people from London and from Vienna and talking about stuff, then you're left out of the game. And in 2021, you cannot be that disconnected. So one of the missions of ecosystems, innovation ecosystems, also in research in other places, but they should be connected to places when you have power, funding, know-how, and stuff like that. This also applies to other companies and startups. I mean, if a startup is detached, sitting somewhere in the garage without access to knowledge and to money, they will not thrive. So again, connectivity is key. Tel Aviv is very much connected because of the multinationals, because the companies that were born here were acquired by American companies. And after a few years, the founders come back to Israel to develop another, to start another company. So they have the locals and they mentor other people and they build another company. So all in all, in a few years, you see that the connectivity is quite high. All right. So Nikki, a question for you. We can talk about falafels and very nice stuff. I mean, Israel is an immigrant society. Very few people over here were born in Israel, or very few people in their 70s were born in Israel. My mother is from Russia. My father is from Poland. My wife's mother is from Uzbekistan, and her father is from Turkey. And my father is from Moldova, and his father is from Britain. His mother is from India. That's what we have. So we have great food. But besides having great food, it means that this blend of crazy people from crazy different cultures creates a lot of clashes. It's not easy to live here, but because of this heterogeneous type of population, it's more easy to develop good businesses, because they need to have somehow being made by people that disagree with each other all the time. And when you disagree with someone, then you build a better product. It's not homogeneous. That's a great edge we have sometimes on other cultures that are very, very homogeneous. We have so many opinions about everything, very much opinionated people. Nikki, I want to ask you a question with this falafel in mind over here. So what do you think basically is, you know what, let's put it differently. When I say the word Israel to you, as one who's been here and is in touch with quite a few people over here, what comes to your mind?
So
I want to start the show for now.
Several things. One is that as you know, I'm home in Silicon Valley. I've been there for, it's the 9th year now that I'm there doing these tours, I'm walking in and out 250 organizations, or I've been walking in and out 250 organizations at a time. So I got the feeling of how people are there, and also the momentum of Silicon Valley got hyped over the past 20 years.
Yeah.
And it was very fashionable going there, which was very unhealthy for the Silicon Valley culture, actually. Because what happened was that more and more people from all over places in the world came there because they thought it's a great place to be. And it blurred what made Silicon Valley so special. And that was the culture, the community mindset, all of the things that I've also experienced in Israel. Now, Austin is hyped, and people are leaving Silicon Valley, which is very healthy for Silicon Valley. Because everyone who's leaving, it's kind of all these people who came there because of the hype, now they just move on for the next hype. So Silicon Valley, I think, is looking at good times because it's going back to the core of the spirit, and that's being passionate about solving problems, right? When I was in Israel, I had this feeling of, well, also everything I knew and learned about Israel before is, I would say that you guys are the inventor of community, right? You are, you might have your different opinions, you might fight, you might smash your heads, but to the outside, you are like your wall, you're like together, right? This is us, and we support each other where we can. And also no matter where we are in the world. I mean, I've been in New York many times in my life, and I feel like there's a lot of Israeli Jewish community there who are really very supportive to each other and try to help each other grow and expand and connect, network and everything. The only thing that I have not seen in Israel, and I think it's something that's healthy, is a hype. I have not experienced this, like the whole world is gravitating to Tel Aviv. I've heard from many people this is a great place to be, and there is a lot of everything. There is community, there is work, there is startups, there is established organizations, there is nightlife, there is partying, there is nature, and it's also in a foreseeable size, but I've never experienced this hype thing. I don't know if you can agree on that, or if you have a different perspective, because from first time to second time being in Tel Aviv, I also seen a lot of architectural change. And becoming fancy, whatever that means, in terms of nice beaches that are woodened out and steel and glass, and abandoned places turned into cool places, all these kinds of things that you see everywhere in the world. Still, I haven't experienced this hype. I still felt like it has something that's very original. I don't know if that makes sense for you, but that was my observation.
I think it's partly correct, because I understand. I can relate to what you say. The hype is basically inside the tech ecosystem over here. I mean, there are all kinds of, 2 years ago, there was this blockchain era, okay? The blockchain was like blew up, and so many people here got rich with Bitcoins and other blockchain technologies. And this was the hype. The amount of blockchain startup over here was like crazy over here. Some of them are still huge, successful, and made so many ICOs and others. So there is this type of thing, because we always look to the future. So we always trying to look at what's going to happen in 5-10 years from now. What should be developed? This is the state of mind of entrepreneur. You have to look all the time into the future. We don't care what just happened. It's not relevant. It takes 5 years to develop a technology. It takes 9 years in average to build a startup that is maybe acquired. This is the statistics. So you always look there, what's going to happen in 9 years. That's why the hype is here, but it depends on which sector you look at. So it's very interesting, because
but it's not a hype in a way that people gravitate to Tel Aviv. It's more a hype in a way that people in Tel Aviv are looking in a new direction. Everyone wants that, right?
Exactly. Tel Aviv is leaking by startup genome research, is leaking startup. People developing the company, going there to build it. All the investors over here are saying, you want to build a company? Go there. Your market research is not about Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is not a beta site. And also London is not a beta site, or Lisbon. Go to the US and stay there. And don't come back until you make a big profit. Nobody, in general terms, nobody here looks at, for sure, about Israel is the market, because it's not a market. It's 7 million people. and also not about Europe because of its very different cultures inside Europe, which sometimes even annoy me in a way, because I feel there's so much potential to cooperate and to work with other companies and cultures 5 hours in plan, not on the other side of the world. But yes, we are looking the investors always want you to build something for the US market, maybe for the China market, but no, US only. This is, by the way, one of the reasons why I'm not in the game. I'm only focusing on side projects that I like to do, and I'm a bootstrapper. I don't like investment. I don't need someone to tell me what to do with his money. So I do my own money.
Isn't that true that Israel is the easiest country in the world to get the citizenship? Because you just have to become Jew and then you apply for citizenship?
Yes, if you can convert to Judaism, it's going to be very, very easy. Yeah, definitely. It's very hard to live over here in a way. It costs a lot, and you need to get used to this very straightforward culture when the cashier in the supermarket asks you, why do you have only one kid and don't have 3 kids? And why did you buy this product when this one is much cheaper? You should say, none of your business. But that's what's happened over here because this is the mentality, okay? We're used to that. 3.2 children in average in Israel, it's very different than many places. So moving here demands a change of thinking. I think that for entrepreneurs and for innovators and for creative people, I think that one should try live in places like that for quite a few months. There are many places in the world that are different in the way they think. It's not surprising that most of the CEOs of the big companies are not born in the US. I have this list over here in the slides. I mean, PepsiCo and Microsoft and Google, they weren't born in America. They don't have this American culture. So in a state of mind of a creator or innovator, living in a very nice life somewhere, it's not the best way for you to grow in a way. In that sense, and I think it's a very interesting learning that it's important for those type of people. Living in a place that service in the army is mandatory at the age of 18, and after 3 years in the army, everybody goes abroad.
3 years, right?
3 years, yes. So at the age of 21, unless you are an officer, and then it's 2 years more than that. But at the age of 21, about 35% of Israelis are going backpacking somewhere around the world. South America, India, Thailand. Nobody goes to Paris. Everybody's just like this. All right, I'm going somewhere, see you in 8 months. And the culture says, go clear your mind. You had a very tough 3 years and do that. So we start learning in the academy in around the age of 24, 25, 26. When in America, they have MBAs already. But we are only starting this graduate school at the age of 25, 26, but we are packed with experiences, with connections from the guys from South America that we used to be in the jungle together, and from, I don't know, selling something somewhere to someone. So you have such a huge advantage in leadership, in creative thinking, in building connections, that these are keys. These are soft skills, important keys for the 2021 people. We talked about education before that.
Is it fair to say that, I mean, years ago, the biggest innovation happened in military. And then from military, it went to
many times it starts over there. It starts over there because they're very straightforward reasons, right?
Also, was it 8200? 8200 is the secret, right?
I'll tell you what the secret of the army. I mean, I think everywhere, not only in Israel, but there's a specific spice in Israel.
I know. Do you guys know 8200, Marcus, Niall, and Michaela?
No. 8200 is an intelligence scope, a unit inside the intelligence scope in Israel that has a very good PR and very good people over there because they pick only the best in software engineering. So basically, they are playing with the latest gadgets and building the best technology 16 hours a day for 3 years. So after they get discharged from the army, they have know-how that you cannot buy in other places. So they take this know-how and deploy it on civilian startups and products. So the cyber is very good, and the way the algorithms work is very good. But this is, let's say, about, I don't know, a small percentage of the soldiers. Others just think about being 18 years old or 19 years old and need to make a life or their decisions, I mean, on a daily basis. So it means that when you, after 3 years of that, you know how to lead people in a very, not very easy situations. So you take this leadership, and some of them are very good at CEOs. Some of them, by the way, are not, because startups are not military service unit. But some of them, this is a very big advantage of people that just had this summer break and now have this MBA, but their experience with people is not so much. And I met soldiers from Austria and from Argentina, from Spain, and I think that these guys have a different aspect, a different perspective on how things work. So it's about experiences. And we started this discussion about 40 minutes ago, talking about education in a nutshell. And in today's world, we all know that soft skills are super, super important. And it's not about 2 + 2 = 4. It's about, I don't think there's a 2. And I'm not sure that you should actually take 2 + 2 because I think it's 2 multiplied by 2. And I don't care about 4. Okay, so this is the state of mind in a way. It's not about being negative to everything. It's about trying to find a different way to do stuff. And and also in Israel, we usually teach people that there's a box and you should please stay in there. But because the culture outside the box and in the newspapers are talking about Fiverr and Checkpoint and Wix and other companies that are, I don't know, buying this commercial in the Super Bowl, so they know that there's another way. So somehow they need to change the route of their lives, and from what they teach you in school, do like this and start their own company because it's allowed to do that. It's allowed to fail. I failed so many times I can't even start, and I'm only 40. So it helps. And I think that if we are, as people that are now in the conversation, that we have the ability to affect others and to educate others, we need to try to find a way to give them all kinds of experiences, social experiences, problem-solving experiences. And sometimes, and most of the time, it's not very nice. It's not very easy and nice to be. This is the last example, okay? I met someone from an Austrian entrepreneur, and I'm not offending Austrians, okay? But an Austrian entrepreneur came here for an entrepreneurship acceleration program I used to manage. And this guy got a few thousands of euros every month, like a grant, in order to build their startup. This is comfortable lives. You cannot build a startup when it's so comfortable because, well, maybe tomorrow I'm getting my paycheck. When I did create my startup, I need to take this and say, how can I find this perfect product? Nobody pays me for that. So it's not comfortable to build new products or be innovator, right? But this is how great things happen, okay? And this is so important. I think this is the case in Israel in a way. I think this is why I like to give these Startup Nation talks. It's not because of this flag in Israel. It's about the learning that when it's difficult, it's gonna make you a much, much better innovator, much, much better person, and much more skilled for 2021. Look at COVID-19. People are closing their carpenter workshop because they're not adapted to what happens when there's no more people in the street. So I think it's a key learning, and I put so much emphasis on that.